Funding for Frontline is provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Tonight, once it was an empire, now it's a country divided between the very rich and the desperate poor.
Everybody seems to be going unemployed.
What would happen if you were a member of the so-called working class?
I'm sure I'd be very annoyed.
But the poor happened to be all in the north of England, and the rich tend all to be in the south of England. So one risks a confrontation, I think, in the end, a geographical confrontation.
Tonight on Frontline, will there always be an England?
From the network of public television stations, a presentation of KCTS Seattle, WNET New York, WPBT Miami, WTVS Detroit, and WGBH Boston. This is Frontline with Judy Woodruff.
Good evening. Tonight, a rebroadcast of a very special Frontline program. It's a film about our closest ally, the country with which we share a special relationship. Our histories are linked by blood and culture, and as we struggle with what the future holds, we look to each other for lessons. England, together with the rest of Great Britain, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, is engaged in an historic upheaval. The country that gave birth to the Industrial Revolution is entering the post-industrial world with difficulty. We in the United States are doing the same, although the changes here are less distinct, endowed as we are with great wealth and resources, and because we are such a mix of cultures. But England is a particular culture, a state of mind, a national character, and that is what our film tonight is about. It's an essay for Frontline by filmmaker Ofra Bikel, who spent 6 months traveling to parts of England we never see. Her film is about what's happened to Britain, and the question she asks, will there always be an England?
This green and pleasant land of poets, of Keats, Blake, Byron. A calm land that comforts us in our chaotic world. Like the English, we too believe that there will always be an England. While there's a country lane, wherever there's a cottage small, beside a field of grain. And of course, some rain. The English. A subtle, civilized people. To Americans, a nation of beloved characters. The vicar, Miss Marple, and the country squire. Like Peter Maxwell. You can meet Peter Maxwell and his wife Virginia on your trip to England.
Hello.
You can visit their home near Winchester.
I was a little child, I could see her. Hello.
If everybody will come in.
You can pick your own fruit.
This summer was an extremely good summer for the strawberries in terms of the wet. They were very juicy ones.
And have a tour of the historic house.
Just be careful of your head.
That's lovely.
So nice of you. You brought everybody over, did you?
Yes.
And of course, you must have tea.
Yeah. cake Mrs. Blackwell's made just a minute ago, so it couldn't be fresher. Do you have milk and sugar? Yes, please. You do. These little teacups are Meyerson teacups. My mother-in-law got them, and I think I'm right in saying you can't buy Meyerson china any longer. You said just milk, didn't you? I wondered, is there anybody who would like some more tea? Do you want sugar?
English tea with some family history.
One of the features about the Maxwell family is that because they were Scottish, they were frequently on the wrong side. And one of the most interesting one was Simon Fraser of 13th Lord Lovat, who is this character portrayed in this famous print by Hogarth. He ended his life leading the Jacobite rebellion of 1745. He was caught, and he was the last man to be executed in public on Tower Hill, which is a doubtful distinction.
You might be invited to a pheasant shoot. And even if you're not lucky, there's always lunch, where you can eat, drink, and listen to what's being said, if you can understand the language.
I did put my name down for this trip.
So he would enjoy it.
Afterwards, you and the pheasants get another chance. This is what you come to Winchester for. This is England. But there is another England. Mighty England of the North. Cradle of the Industrial Revolution. England of Birmingham and Sheffield, Manchester, Newcastle and Liverpool. Gateway to a great and vast empire, bringing wealth and power to this island nation. Now, a monument to past glory.
130 years ago, Britain was at the pinnacle of her industrial preeminence. Britain led the world. Britain was the workshop of the world. And we had no competition. The difference today is that we have acute competition, and we have not faced that competition effectively. We have grown, our competitors have grown much faster. And in about 100 years, and it's now measurable, we have gone from the top of the industrial tree virtually to the bottom in terms of standard of living.
We're down now to the same level as about Puerto Rico. I mean, Italy's overtaken us. We're in the third category of nations. And very shortly, we're going to be about the poorest country in Europe. West Germany has a national income per head of population of twice the size of that of Great Britain. France has overtaken us, Belgium, Holland, every other country in Europe, apart from Spain and Greece, who've recently come into the European, Portugal recently come into the European community, and they are rapidly catching up on us, and in a few years' time, they will have overtaken us as well.
The harsh facts about today's England are not felt here, in Winchester. The South has always held on to England's wealth and tradition. It still does.
I think Winchester's principal image is quality, excellence, integrity. It's been a major part of English life for, 1,100 years since Alfred found...
David Cowan of Winchester Council.
It hasn't changed in that position in English life over these 1,100 years. It's had its ups and downs, but it's still an important historical centre, it's still an important regional centre, and it still protects a lot of the traditional values of British life.
Your Worships, the circumstances of this offence are that at about 10 minutes past 11...
Values like a history of common law, traditions of justice and fair play, and the belief that those who are fortunate have a duty to those who are not. Jenny Bland is a magistrate. She is one of the leading citizens of Winchester, a conservative city.
He went to the police station of his own accord. We feel very strongly about this because we will not have this sort of violence in the streets of Winchester.
I was certainly brought up in a Conservative household, but I think, like many of my background, one is very concerned at the terrible conditions in which some people in this country now live. And although one doesn't want the sort of free-for-all government we had until, was it 8 years ago, when really wages soared and the country became extremely inefficient and inflation was getting out of control. One doesn't want that. At the same time, one would like a government that had perhaps a little bit more interest and concern about those who can't help themselves.
At her home, Jenny does what she can to help.
Yes, sir, 3 bags full.
She runs a kindergarten for the neighborhood children.
And 1 for the day, and 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane.
Could I speak to Sir Michael Davidson?
Almost single-handedly, she raises money for local charities.
Michael, thank you for your letter. We're enormously grateful. 80,000 is the largest cheque we've had so far. We charge something like 30 quid a ticket.
It's the tradition of noblesse oblige, to help others.
Somebody like Lenny Henry, who's very funny.
Derek Nimmo, who's a great friend. I can always twist his arm.
But for all she does here at home, she knows there's another England, far from here.
We were charging 30. We want at least 15 of that to be profit. I don't think people in the south of England have a clue what other parts of the country are. When I say people, I'm generalising enormously. Of course, there are people who travel and who are concerned. I happen to travel up and down quite a lot and have reasons to go to the north of England and have seen the sort of state that the cities there are in and terrible unemployment and the effect it has on people. But an awful lot of people who live around here have no reason to know how bad it is and just don't concern themselves.
In Liverpool, Leslie Sweeney has good reasons to be concerned. The electronics plant she works for is about to close.
There's about 60 people left now out of 720. It's very, very bad. You know, everybody's gone. People with knowledge, computer people, engineers. Now you've got experienced people here who can do the work, but they're taking all our work and they're going to train somebody else to do it, while they put us on a scrap heap on the dole.
Leslie lives on a council estate, public housing, in the north of Liverpool. She lives there with her 6 children and her husband, Joe. Joe is 44 years old. He was a dock worker. 6 years ago, he was made redundant. In other words, laid off. He's not been able to find work since.
It's queer how you feel. You know, the times you walk around and you see all your mates are out at work, or fellas you knew, and they're all the same age as me, you know.
Yours and
Claire's? Yeah. I still don't like the idea of her going to work and me being in here, but it would be unfair if I didn't do anything. And she had to come home and cook after doing a day's work.
I do feel sorry for Joe. I mean, you think of a man doing a tough job, don't you? You know, a man going to work. Well, he's not. As you know, he's cleaning up, cooking.
I don't mind cooking at all, like, you know. I think it takes a little bit of boredom out the day, you know. Otherwise, nothing. Television then from the night. That's it. That's a day. That's a week. It's the same routine there enough. Day in, day out, week in, week out.
In 10 days, Leslie will return from her job for the last time. Then she, too, will have to stay home. She'll be unemployed.
Everybody seems to be going unemployed. You know, and it is heartbreaking for people. You know, when you're used to getting up in the morning and going to work, and then you find out there's just nothing. You know, you just be in the house, or I just couldn't stay in the house. I couldn't. I know I couldn't. I mean, you think as you're getting older, I'm 41 now, And you think, you know, you're getting older, you'll be able to work and you'll be able to save this, that and the other, but you can't. I'll have to do something. There's no way I can sit in a house all day. I couldn't. I just can't do it. I know I can't do it.
Joe does.
I know, but I can't. No.
Do you think you'll find a job?
I'll search for a job. I'll go out first thing in the morning. Till last thing at night if I have to. I'll get something.
But the visits to the job centre are sobering.
I've applied for 38 jobs in the last 3 weeks. I've had 3 interviews. You never hear anything after an interview. It's if they pick people out before you even go for it. And it's just a formality that you go for these interviews so they can say, well, we've interviewed so many thousand. I applied for a job the other week that isn't even advertised yet. And there was 2,000 people for it. I believe in working for my living. A fair day's work for a fair day's pay. I believe in working. I think everybody should work. I don't think anybody should be sitting like a vegetable in the house, doing nothing, absolutely bored sick. People go crazy doing that, and I've got no intentions of going crazy.
Well, maybe it's the week. Maybe it's...
But she may have no choice. Soon she may find herself at home with her husband Joe and her 3 grown daughters, Dawn, Shirley, and Samantha, who with one other sister share a single bedroom. They are all in their 20s. None of them works.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is indeed St. Valentine's.
I don't know what the future holds for them because it's just a boring life that they've got. I mean, they apply for jobs, they don't get jobs. I mean, all these young kids want to work. My daughters want to work, and my son, my friends' children in work, they want to work. They can't work. Nobody will give them work.
There are 31 families in the small council estate. Only 4 people work, and one of them is Leslie. A few houses down the road lives Mr. Galloway with his son Stephen and his daughter Tracy, all unemployed. Tracy is 19. She's not looking for a job. Except for the fact that her parents are divorced, Tracy is happy at home.
I think I would really be happy if Mum and Dad were together. But I know that can't happen, so... Come on, you lazy fucker.
Like every teenager, she has her dreams.
I'd want to be an air hostess. Get round, see the world. Never been abroad. I am happy at home, though. I get up about 12, sometimes 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I can come downstairs, and I know my dad's done everything. He does the washing, the cooking, the cleaning, the ironing, the shopping. So, more or less, I don't have to do anything. I mean, I should do, but I don't. My dad does all the work. I watch the Sullivans, that's on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or something that's on the telly, and then I go round to Julie's. Sometimes Julie comes round here.
They said the role's missing them, the part, like, the storyline. They said they never closed it, so he can come back when he wants. He's working away down south, didn't he?
They talk about their favourite soap operas and worry about the future of the characters. But it's not all as simple as it seems. Tracy is 5 months pregnant, and Julie, who is 16, has a 1-year-old daughter. Their other friend, Annette, is 19. She has a son of 1 and a daughter 3. Lynn, Julie's sister, is 18 and has a 6-month-old baby. Not one of them is married. We asked them how many of their friends did not have babies.
2, I think.
How many friends do you have who do have babies?
Everyone.
Why do you think children like you are having babies?
I couldn't tell you. I must have been mental. Just pregnant, had a baby. Told my mum that was it.
Do you enjoy your baby? You enjoy life?
Well, you can't do what you want. I mean, you can't go out or nothing. I live with my dad, so life just evolves around the children, really. That is my life, the kids.
Is it fun?
No, it's boring.
You're stuck, aren't you? Tied down and all that. Gotta come in and look after and all that. Change your nappy, do washing, ironing, feed them, buy them clothes. Got no money for yourself. Scruffy like me. That's it, like.
So why do you think so many 16-year-olds have babies?
Because they're stupid.
If you were to give Tracy advice 5 months ago, what would you tell her?
To get rid of it.
I wouldn't have got rid of it. I wanted it. If I didn't want it, I wouldn't have had it. I was on the pill. I'm going to come off it. So I knew what I was doing. And I wouldn't have an abortion. No one asked me to have an abortion. Everyone advised me. Tricia said to me I was stupid for having one, and even Lynn and Julie, everyone's told me. But it's what I wanted, so it's me who's having it.
What would the baby add to your life, do you think?
I don't know, really. Got to find out now, haven't I?
When you had the car, were
I wouldn't like to be young today. You know, there's no work, there's no prospects or nothing. The girls, they all get into trouble, you know. Quite a few round here in this area that's pregnant, you know, or that's got children. I mean, she's not the only one.
Oh, yeah.
It's tragic, really. I'm glad that I was young, you know, years ago when there was plenty to do than what now, you know. I don't think I could cope now.
You can do it, they tell themselves and each other. You can do it if you try. After all, others made it here in Liverpool, didn't they?
Okay, here we are outside the Oxford Street Maternity Hospital, and in room 1924, John Lennon was born on the 9th of October 1940, and you can actually see this room itself. There it is, right in the middle with a balcony, fitting for John Lennon.
But the Beatles, like the glory of Liverpool, belong to the past. The docks are now desolate, facing empty seas. The once proud port of an empire is no more. No other city in Europe, or indeed the world, has declined so sharply in the last 2 decades. It is a city of poor people, where 25% are unemployed. A city of the past.
Well, the problem with Liverpool is that the reason for its existence has disappeared. It was a great shipping city, trade with Africa, trade with America, import of raw cotton, transatlantic passenger shipping, import of sugarcane, things like that. All that has disappeared. There's no passenger shipping anymore. We're on the wrong side of England for trade with Europe. We're not an industrial town, we're a shipping town. There's no shipping left.
Over a third of the population of Liverpool has left. Half of the manufacturing industry has disappeared. Now, the second and third generation of people are without work. Liverpool is a devastated city, where people feel that no one cares about them very much, least of all, the present Conservative government.
The members of Parliament for the Conservative Party that support the Prime Minister are almost all in the South. There are no votes, no seats up here, and there's no way of winning seats up here, so there's a political reason. But more important, I think, is that Southerners, the prosperous, the rich, the progressive, growing part of England, doesn't really understand what life is like in the depressed North. It's quite a different world, it has quite different values, it has quite different life chances. The risk we have is that we are developing two Englands, the England of the rich, who are growing richer, and the England of the poor, who are growing relatively poorer, who are not sharing in prosperity at all. And it's not only that you have a rich class and a poor class, but the poor happen to be all in the north of England, and the rich tend all to be in the south of England. So one risks a confrontation, I think, in the end, a geographical confrontation.
In Winchester in the south, the unemployment rate is the lowest in England. It is a cathedral city about which an Englishman wrote, "No English city has a nobler record in the past, or a life more peaceful in our rushing, hasteful age. There is still given to those who have the wisdom to know it, to dwell in peace." Words written almost 100 years ago still ring true today. Dr. Stephen Winkley is Deputy Headmaster of Winchester College. The college was founded in 1382 by William of Wykeham. Its students are still called Wykehamists. It is the oldest and one of the most venerated of the English public schools. Its graduates are among the best and the brightest.
We are in a fortunate situation at Winchester in that 90% of our people will go on to university education, and the majority of them will find work pretty easily, as far as our information goes at the moment, at the end of that. And to that extent, we are obviously, as it were, at the top end of the market in terms of being able to use the opportunities that are available in the world outside.
What is it specially about us that gives us this special quality?
I think society, the way this country's run, puts us into that sort of situation. Puts us into this situation.
Right. So you're an unwilling victim of society.
I'm not unwilling.
You're a willing victim
benefiting.
of what society has done. What would happen if you were a member of the so-called working class?
I'm sure I'd be very annoyed. I'd hate those Wykehamists. I'd hate them. Because they had something that I'd probably want. They got money, they've got a good job at the end of their scholastic career.
How many people in this room are worried about getting a job? Or, to put it more precisely, worried about not getting a job?
I think it depends how many of us go to the industry.
Well, that itself is an astonishing reflection, isn't it? There are kids growing up in the north of England who have very, very little prospect of getting a job in the next 5-10 years.
I know, I think we all realise that.
But it hasn't made any impact on you in the sense that it's not going to happen to you.
It does, it makes an impact, because we all realise how lucky we are to be here compared to the guy up in the north whose his dad's unemployed, his mother's got cancer and all the rest of it, you know.
I don't think cancer's anything to do with
everybody
it.
else got cancer.
But do we?
I wouldn't say that the fact that there's massive unemployment in this country comes up as a subject of discussion in this school more than about once a year, if that.
It's something that we discuss quite a lot in economics.
Well, if we did suddenly become unemployed for a long time, it would be shock horror, I think. Someone from Winchester to come out of university and go onto the dole would be a...
20%, Peter, means 1 in 5. There are 15 people in this class. We would expect, therefore, 3 people to be worried.
Yeah,
but no one's worried.
No, but in this school, it wouldn't be. It'd be an awful lot.
The fact is, it may be regrettable, but Wykehamists are more likely to get a job than someone who's left school at 16 from a comprehensive. I mean, you have to face the facts.
Right, and the fact you're facing is that you're likely to get a job.
Yes, statistically.
So no one's worried about it.
Not really, no.
Let's suppose I was a teacher in the north,
my feelings, my perceptions of the world would be very different. I would see the world, for starters, as hostile. I would reckon the world was against me. I would reckon that there weren't the jobs that maybe there were when I grew up, especially if I grew up in that part of the world, that the thing was changing much faster than I was able to keep touch with it. My emphasis would be much more on educating my charges for change and for leisure, which is, I guess, a pretty bogus way of saying educating for unemployment.
You got the oxygen in your lungs?
Mr. Price teaches school in the north, in Liverpool.
Education, when I went to school, was the answer. It gave you a chance to get out of your strata of society, work your way up, if you like, and the job was there. You could follow a certain path. Today, there's no jobs. There's no hope. If I was a working class child, I just don't know what I'd do. You had anemia. We mentioned it before. I don't see any future at all for them. Somebody somewhere has to provide, if not a job, at least a hope of a job. And at the moment, it's the hope that's missing. They will accept that they might not have jobs this year. But at least if someone said, well, maybe in 3-4 years' time, there is hope, then they would accept that. But nobody's saying that.
What they are being told is that upon leaving school, they must enroll in a government program, the Youth Government Training Scheme, where they will be trained for 1 year in various jobs, training which will help them find work in the future. It doesn't quite work out that way. Steve Galloway finished his training more than a year ago.
Wrote off for about 20 odd jobs, and it's the same answer. Like, don't call us, we'll call you. But some is, when you think you've got it and you find out you haven't, that's the worst.
So, what do you do?
Not much. Not much. Well, I usually go down with my mates, visit my mates, go for a drink or, not much really. Time passes, but you never know how it passes, it just passes.
Time passes as thousands of young people sit in broken-down youth centers, doing nothing. Growing apathetic and cynical, many of them have stopped even looking for jobs. Often, the job center must come to them.
Alright everyone, I've got the latest vacancies here, and what I'll do is just run through them, and if any of you got any you fancy going for them, just give us a shout. First one's one of those government schemes, 12 months ones. It's for a part-time art tutor, $49.73 a week. Any takers? Okay, next one, Office Junior. It's in Liverpool City, £42 a week.
£42 is about $60, not much more than what they get on the dole. Most of the jobs will be temporary, subsidized by government programs, or as they are called, government schemes.
Monday to Friday, 10 till 4, work in the city centre. Another sales assistant in the city centre, got to be over 17 for this one, £71.50 a week, Monday to Friday during the store hours. Shop assistant in Toxteth, £52.20 a week, that's another government scheme for 12 months. Got to be over 18 for that one.
Have you got nothing but schemes, Steve?
Very few. Part-time arts tutor here, it's another government scheme one for 12 months. You've got to be over 18 and it's £49.73 a week for 20 hours.
It's slave wages, isn't it? £45 a week, 25 part-time, it's not good. Can't live on that.
Most of the jobs that there is are only dead cheap schemes like slave labour and all that. So it wouldn't work for them because the money you get doesn't even pay your rent or whatever.
I don't want any of them jobs.
For me to wear, I'd have to be picking up at least £120 a week to make it worth my while going to work.
I'm better off on the dole.
Myself, I've been working on the side, the last couple of weekends, Saturday, Sundays, just to keep me going, get another extra few bob. It's like a question of survival more than anything.
I've been unemployed for 2 years now, officially. I've done jobs working on the side. But, you've got to survive in this country.
Anyone who takes that money isn't fiddling the government. All they're taking back is what was theirs in the first place.
I'm lying to the state to get money off them, to get a job in the future.
Future? I don't think there's no future for us, no. It's gone from bad to worse. Nothing.
There was a future here, only 15 years ago, on the other side of the country, in Teesside, in the northeast of England. Born in the Industrial Revolution, this was a region which lived off heavy industry, iron and steel, engineering and chemicals. Teesside was prosperous. Unlike Liverpool, the government poured money into the industries of Teesside in the 60s and 70s. But inefficiency, old technology, the replacement of steel by new products, made it harder and harder to compete for markets. The industry declined and almost collapsed. Teesside was no longer the Northeast success story. The Labour government's policy of throwing money at the problem didn't work. And the free market theories which the Thatcher government counted on made things worse. Teesside has become one of the country's highest unemployment black spots. A quarter of its people are out of work. Dole queues sprang up across the region. But unlike Liverpool, there was no long tradition of unemployment here, so the blow felt harder, and the sense of failure more profound.
People ask me, am I bumping into my friends that I've not seen for a long, long time, maybe years, and just talking in conversation, and they might say, how's John doing in his job? And I say, well, he's not working. And immediately my thought is that they're thinking, oh, here we go, another scrounger. And they might not be, but I feel as if they are.
John Mackin was a skilled worker for British Steel.
I've tried to get jobs in other areas, but you don't even get a reply off these people. I could really pick up my bedroom walls with the letters I've had from British Steel. I've saying no. I came home in a state of delusion once because I got an interview. It was, I was down to 6 from 3.5 million down to 6 for an interview. And, you come home jumping about and clicking your heels together.
So it's very, very rare that he does get as far as an interview. But if he does get as far as an interview, I think maybe this time it might be it. He'll go for the interview, and when he comes back and he says, I didn't get it, I feel very angry and hurt because I think, well, why didn't he get it? Well, what's wrong with him? He's a good worker. And I start saying, but did you tell them how long you were at your other job? You're not going to stay there for a couple of weeks. You want to be there for a long time. Did you tell them that? Did you make sure that they understood? But there's nothing I can do about it, he'll say. I can't make them give me the job. And I say, but why? Why don't they like you? I mean, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not deformed, Did you make sure that you are a good worker? Did you tell them? And I tend to get a little bit angry with him. Did you put yourself over enough that they understood that you really want this job? And then he'll get a little bit angry with me. And then he might say, I can't plead with them. I can't make them give me the job. There might have been thousands after that job. Not hundreds, or maybe 5. There might have been thousands. What makes you think they're going to pick me? But because you're a good worker, why shouldn't they pick you? But so is everybody else that goes after a job. And so I might just, I just accept it then. I say, well, okay then. But I still think in the back of my mind, they don't like him. That's why. They didn't like him.
Remember, this will be your first contact with the employer, and it is important that you make a good impression. It could get you through to an interview.
The government, too, seems to believe that it is all a matter of being liked. So job clubs are being run, where the unemployed are taught the secrets of appealing to a prospective employer.
Think about what you've got to offer an employer, and be prepared to answer questions about yourself,
People who never had to look for work, because industry was always there for them, must now learn the ABCs of the outside world, like making a telephone call.
What can happen is you get into the middle of the call and your money runs out, and you haven't got enough change. Make sure you've got a pen and paper handy to take down details. When you get through to the department head, address him by name.
Hello, my name's David Jones. I'd like to speak to the head of the sales department. Can you tell me his name, please?
Yes, it's Mr. Stewart. I'll put you through.
Hello, Mr. Stewart. My name's David Jones. I've had several years in sales, and I'm interested in meeting with you to talk about the possible openings in your department.
We did use mortise machines.
When John Richardson, who's a skilled worker, got his hoped-for interview, it was with the director of a community program where jobs are subsidized by the government.
And it's temporary work for a period of only up to 52 weeks.
Yes.
Don't you?
Yes, the contract.
How do you feel about that kind of work?
Well, I mean, a job for 52 weeks, one way of looking at it, it is a job to keep me off the door for a year.
Right.
But in the
If
long
somebody comes to us for a job, their chances of getting a job are 1 in 25.
Till I'm what, 55, maybe 60, if possible.
Would you be willing, while you're with us, to undertake... I wouldn't have believed 3 years ago that we would get the numbers of people and the quality and the skills of the people coming forward to take these jobs. You've actually been unemployed now for 3 years.
3 years.
We know that the vast majority of the people who we've interviewed will not find employment with us at this point in time.
Well, mainly, I've just got myself into a sort of routine, just doing more...
It's not a problem with the people not having skills. It's because they do.
Let's have a look.
It's not the problem that they're not highly motivated because they are.
My parents, I go there twice a week.
And it's not a problem that they're not good at interviews because they're good at being interviewed. How do you keep your skills in practice?
Well, say for instance...
The problem lies with the fact that the jobs are not there for those people.
Yes.
And anybody who says any different is a liar.
The problem just me getting up that much early, but I'm usually fairly early in the morning anyway.
John Richardson did not get the job at the end of his interview. Like the others, he will continue to wait.
5 seconds to go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
He will pass the time as best he can, watching pigeon races,
What's the height he'll get when he goes over that score?
the sport of the unemployed.
See him climbing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too long, Steve.
Yes.
10 to 15.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them, he will wait and hope that something will happen, something that will turn things around for Teesside. Why did this happen to England?
Britain never took the decisions it had to take in order to modernise its manufacturing industry. It never took the decisions it had to take in terms of its attitudes in industry. And that's meant that for about the past 20 or 30 years, we've been in a pretty steady decline that's actually been hastened over the last 5 or 6 years very, very rapidly.
Well, I think it's all part of the post-Second World War heritage in which we built a great country on an empire and with an empire and haven't yet adjusted to a new role in the world. I think we'd started doing that when Edward Heath took us into the European community at the beginning of the 70s, and then Harold Wilson confirmed that decision under the Labour government. I think people began to get a sense of being a European country and playing a role within the European community, and we started looking in that direction. But then, you see, we've had something like the Falklands War, which I think is a tremendous disaster from this point of view, because it's revived all the ideas of grandeur, of great old Britain going out into the world and being a great international power, when the truth of the matter is, which the British people don't like to face, and British politicians don't like to face very often either, is that we're the 19th country in the world.
Many people say that the loss of empire and our failure to modernize after 2 wars, which in fact we won, are the fundamental causes of our failure to be more successful industrially. I don't believe it. I think the empire was a contributory factor in that it gave us access to protected markets, but not a fundamental factor. We actually won 2 wars, so the question comes up, if we can win a war, why can't we win an industrial battle?
The answer lies not in the north, with its armies of unemployed, but rather in the south, in places like Winchester. a part of establishment England, with people like Peter Maxwell, a member of the Winchester City Council.
There is a serious argument which we have to contend with, which is the argument by the City Council, which has to represent Winchester district as a whole, not just Kingsford, not just this little village, but the whole locality. And their argument is that we may need high technology in this area for the sake of our local firms and for the sake of our children who may need to find jobs in high tech when other jobs have gone out of the window in 10, 15 years' time.
Every year, industry and roads take something between 60 and 100,000 acres of land in this country, small as it may be, for development. Why on earth put something down here in a beautiful part of the English countryside? Why can't they take it somewhere else where the people desperately need jobs?
In this most attractive area are woodland, and over 200 trees would be destroyed at one fell swoop. They're 200 years old, some of them. This is quite nonsensical.
Totally unacceptable as far as I'm concerned.
The demand is not there. And for goodness sake, let's keep this area as clear as we possibly can. Let us say no, no, no.
The minister for this said the other day that the countryside is one of the glories of the nation. Yes. And I think we've got to hold him to that and say, you put your money where your heart is and yes, protect the local countryside, because that's all we've got left in this part of the world.
Over 200 years after the Industrial Revolution, industry is still alien in the South. The real England is in the countryside, and the admired Englishman is not the successful industrialist, but the educated country gentleman. It's in the history.
We were the earliest country to industrialize. We industrialized as we are said to have acquired our empire in a fit of absence of mind. We were an agricultural economy, a highly successful one, a highly stable society. And the people who, in fact, started the Industrial Revolution were the nonconformists, people who were denied the esteemed occupations of government, the academic world, the learned professions. And it was the Quakers and other nonconformists who were the pioneers of the Industrial Revolution. So to that extent, it started off, if you like, with a degree of social stigma. Nonetheless, we flourished industrially over that period up to the middle of the 19th century. And then the next blow, if you like, to foundations as an industrial country was Dr. Thomas Arnold, a most distinguished headmaster who went to one of the most famous British public schools, as we call them, which are, of course, private. And when he went to Rugby, he said the ideal of an English gentleman, and he didn't even think of educating English gentlewomen in those days, was someone as far removed as possible as from making money, and therefore from industry. And that ethos, that ethic, the idea that to be an academic is better than to be someone using his hands or her hands, has pervaded the British educational system ever since.
Then kaitini torpo, kremelos peplukte eswipenes. Upaithmai.
What sort of job you think you'll be doing in 10 years' time? Michael?
I should think something wonderfully unproductive like journalism, perhaps be an economist.
Right. Thomas?
I expect I'll probably be a lawyer or a banker or something.
Mm-hmm. Edward?
Banking or journalism, I think.
Rufus?
Something like business or finance.
Jamie?
I'd like to go into television. If there's any.
Melin?
Probably law or civil service, I'm not sure.
Nick?
Probably some sort of surveying or banking, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Emma?
I'll probably be married to a banker. Or...
Dominic.
Yeah. Diplomacy, probably.
Mm-hmm. What kind of jobs do you think would be unsuitable?
The British generally have a pretty arrogant view of going into industry. It's rather sort of down market, they think. Yeah.
I mean, this is probably one of the reasons why British industry is doing so badly. If people are going through so-called respectable careers.
A Wycomist who became a sales manager would be frowned upon.
Right. Right. Does anyone want to add to that?
There are some careers which, if you sort of announced in tea or lunch or something, there would be a sort of stunned silence. Everybody would drop their forks and go, "You what?"
That's
You're
right.
going to go into sweet manufacturing or something.
That's right.
Well, industry at the moment is a very risky thing to be involved in. There are companies going into liquidation every day. There's an enormous amount of risk in it. And compare the risk in industry to the risk of being a lawyer, where there are enormous profits. The market is huge and growing. It doesn't actually produce anything, but it's an enormously safe job.
Industry sums up something that's greasy, dirty, strikes. It's just unpleasant. It's just not something that some little sheltered boy who goes to Winchester College would do.
In one sentence, I think I would sum it up by saying it is we don't regard industry as the occupation for a gentleman.
This report now from Terry Baker.
Any new industry which these days provides jobs in the North East is more than welcome in these very grim times. Hartlepool is...
In fact, so few people go into manufacturing industry these days that those who do are hailed by press and television. This story started when the government offered a £75,000 bank loan to anyone willing to open a factory in the north. Chris Leveris, a Greek Cypriot, was interested. The fact that he hadn't a penny of his own did not stop him from picking up the telephone.
I heard this voice, obviously a foreign voice. I didn't know where he was from. I didn't know what he was wanting to do. He wanted to come and talk to me about setting up a factory, a business in Hartlepool.
I said, well, look, this is not a question of me failing. I am going to succeed. Have no fear. Never mind the cost. At the end of the day, I said, we will succeed.
I didn't really believe it, but it was... Within 2 weeks, he was back again.
It took a few weeks of, persuading people, but I had a big enough mouth to make sure that everyone understood what I was saying.
It was just unbelievable. The rest of the story tells itself.
This is BBC One. Now from Newcastle, look north with Mike Neville.
3 years later, Mr. Chris is a huge success story. He employs over 300 workers in his factory, and his business is worth $15 million. Television hails him. The government honors him.
Peter Holland has been looking at the recipe for success.
If the man behind the venture gets his way, then before long, Hartlepool could become known worldwide as Cake City.
It's not shipbuilding or high-tech, and cream cakes may never put England on the industrial map again, but they do make Mr. Chris rich. He works hard for it.
Whether I am here, whether I am traveling, whether I'm at home, at all times, I think of how I'm going to make it bigger, better, more strong. Sometimes I get up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I do my exercise in the bathroom, and I think, now, that's what I should do tomorrow, and I cannot go back to sleep. So I get in my car, I come to work. 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning here is not news to my staff. They don't even turn a hair. They expect me.
And this attitude is what Mrs. Thatcher expects from Britain. A new attitude towards entrepreneurship and industry.
What Mrs. Thatcher's got in mind, it's really 50 years in advance for the majority of people in this country. They're not ready yet. No way. If they were ready, there's lots of money in this country. Go out and get it. It's there. That's the motto.
But to do that, England will need a new kind of industrialist, able to resist what the old ones could not. The lure of being an English country gentleman.
Chris, come on, girl. Chris, come on. Come on in. Chris. Chris, come on, come on. I live like a real English gentleman. I know what good things in life are. When he roamed, where's Romans too? But I do it better. I do it better. Come on, girl. Come on.
So our journey ends where it began, in the English countryside, where no new ideas, no government plans, no bleak statistics hold faster than the English dream and the belief that as long as there's a country lane, wherever there's a cottage small beside a field of grain, there will always be an England.
One final comment. It's ironic that so many of the qualities we admire in the English, their attachment to place, their civility, their ability in the face of misfortune to make do, are perhaps the very things that make it so hard for them to deal with the changing world. Please join us again for Frontline. I'm Judy Woodruff. Good night.
Next week on Frontline, it's not Miami Vice. It's real cops, real crime, real danger.
The streets are like the jungle in a way.
It's like an avalanche that keeps coming and coming, and you know, you put your finger in here and boom, and it comes out, you go over here. You know, you just can't stop it.
Watch Street Cop next week on Frontline.
For a transcript of this program, please send $4 to Frontline, Box 322, Boston, Massachusetts, 02134. Frontline is produced for the Documentary Consortium by WGBH, Boston, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Frontline was provided by this station and other public television stations nationwide, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Schools, colleges, and other organizations interested in purchasing or renting video cassettes of this program may call 800-424-7963 or write PBS Video, Post Office Box 8092, Washington, D.C. 20024.